Greetings all and welcome to Dave's Craft Room, and on today's video we are once again working with Karen Nyberg's Earth Views fabric line. And on this video I have downloaded her pattern called Cupola Views. And the cupola is the window. There's like all these panes and you can look out the window from the space station at the planet Earth. That's where she chilled and looked out the window and took photos, which those photos became the fabric line. So this pattern is based off of that whole experience and the window. It's by Karen Nyberg and Sarah Ruiz. It says here, Cupola Views was inspired by the cupola module on the International Space Station. One main circular window and 6 surrounding side windows provide astronauts with spectacular views of Earth and celestial objects. Karen Nyberg loves spending time in the cupola and gazing down on Earth's beauty during her time on the ISS. She feels this pattern is a perfect way to showcase her love of Earth views. Sarah Ruiz is a quilt pattern designer and NASA engineer. She was flight controller for Karen Nyberg's 2008 Space Shuttle mission and a member of the operations safety team during her 2013 space station expedition. This is cray! This was designed by NASA engineers and astronaut. So we're gonna make the twin size of the kaleidoscope layout. And the thing is, this pattern, the way they have it, each cupola has various different colors in it. I want each of mine to have the same color around the circle which is also that same color. Here's the coloring page. I don't have an overhead camera. I don't have an overhead camera set up. So basically, I want each cupola to be the same fabric. So that's how I'm gonna do it. And I found this panel in Tokyo, and I want to incorporate her into the quilt. I want to piece her in. I think I can do it. I think I can pull it off. So basically it looks as though she's outside the window on her spacewalk. So we piece it all together and we applique circles on. So I'm gonna get to cutting. Oh, here's the, see, it's got templates and everything, you cut it. I'm gonna read it, figure out what's going on, cut some fabric. I'm now figuring out how to put my astronaut into one of the cupolas, and this is what I came up with. I'm tracing the templates onto this transfer paper that I bought at a quilt festival in Yokohama. You can see through the transfer paper, and when you draw on it, the ink penetrates through to the fabric or whatever is underneath. So I draw the shapes of the cupola on it. You can't see the ink on the camera, but it's there. And then I lay the transfer paper over the astronaut and trace it on top. and then I add a 1/4 inch seam allowance when I cut it out, and I use turned edge applique to sew the pieces of the astronaut onto one of the prints. Now I can piece it into the quilt just like all the other prints. Alright, so I'm going to pause here because this is the point where I'm going to start to put the circles on. I realized that the thing to do is I'm going to use the freezer paper method that I did in the Alex and Melissa wedding quilt video to piece my circles inside, okay? Because I just prefer that over appliquing them. So that's what I'm gonna do. What I've done is I've assembled the quilt into sections of 2 rows. And that's because it's gonna be easier for me to piece the circles into a smaller chunk at a time rather than doing the whole quilt. So we can do 10 of the circles now, and then I'll sew this chunk together and do these 2, and then these 2, and then it's going to be a little bit harder to piece the circles in once the quilt top is bigger and bigger. But ideally there's going to be less to do by that point. That's the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I need to cut out my circles from my freezer paper, iron it on and stuff. I'll show you everything. This is my astronaut because she fell on a seam right here that I haven't sewn together yet. We have to wait to sew her body in until a little bit later. But so that's my way forward now. Alright, so this is the technique. This is how I piece circles in, and the result is kind of like reverse applique. This method was invented by Dale Fleming. She calls it the 6-minute circle. I have my freezer paper and I ironed 2 layers together so that it would be even more stable. and I use an X-Acto knife to cut out the circle shape. I ironed the freezer paper onto the back side of the quilt top where the circle goes, and I cut it out kind of like 3/8 of an inch away. Then I cut the fabric all the way around the circle, not quite reaching the freezer paper, and I ironed those edges over the paper. Then I find the matching print that I'm going to piece in. I haven't trimmed them into a circle shape yet because I find it easier to work with the bigger piece and then trim off the bulk later. I put glue on the underturned edge of the open hole and glue the fabric on, and I use the iron to dry it. With all of my pieces sewn into rows of 2 like this, I can do these 2 at a time. After I have the circle all glued down, I peel the paper off, turn it over, and I put a seam right on that creased edge around the circle. And then I trim the bulk off. I do this like 20 times. Alright, the quilt top is done. I decided to machine quilt it, and I'm using black thread and going between each black stashing strip in straight lines, and then I free motion echo a circle around each circle. Alright, this is the final result. I'm so glad the astronaut worked out. We got her pieced in. Her name is Dr. Cassandra O. Pia. So that's all for today's video. Stay tuned to my channel because I'm designing my own quilt using this fabric line, and that video will come out soon. So subscribe to Dave's Craft Room and please come again.